Good evening. Welcome to our study tonight. Let's start off with some in the news. Under New World Order, this one came out this week. Wars and rumors of war spread across the globe. Now, before I read some of this and comment, let me tell you that I'm really concerned that the world is in a state of war. We should be way past that. But again, Jesus predicted that's what we would have towards the end times. And in fact, that's what's happening all over the globe. Most of us just want to live in peace, but leaders all over the world are preparing for more war. In fact, at this point, it appears that the entire globe is being gripped by a really bad case of war fever. Economic Community of Western African States is warning now that it can invade the nation of Niger if coup leaders do not reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum. On Monday, we learned that over 3,000 U.S. troops have arrived in the Red Sea. Of course, you didn't hear that on CNN because they don't ever tell you anything about world news. But more than 3,000 United States military personnel have arrived in the Red Sea aboard 2 warships, part of a beefed-up response from Washington after tanker seizures by Iran, the U.S. Navy said this past Monday. The deployment adds to a growing U.S. military buildup in a tense Gulf waterways vital to global oil trades. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the city of Damascus was just rocked by an Israeli missile strike early Monday morning hours, resulting in the deaths of 4 Syrian soldiers. Tensions in the Middle East haven't been this high in decades, and a major war could erupt at literally any time. Planners and the rest are participating in a major war in the Middle East in 2023. If a big move in the region is planned, I don't think it's going to be 2023 for a lot of reasons. I think it's probably going to be 2024, early in 2024. Meanwhile, the much hyped up counteroffensive in Ukraine is not going very well. Ukrainian forces are just getting slaughtered by well-prepared Russian defenses, but more young Ukrainians are being sent to their deaths with each passing day. This counteroffensive was supposed to be a campaign that turned the tide of the war, but instead, it's the Russians that are currently advancing. But instead of pushing for peace, the Biden administration continues to insist that we're going to pour more resources into this war for as long as it takes. And so both sides just continued to escalate matters. I don't know about you, but it would make a whole lot more sense if we'd secure our borders than sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We have no business there. We should be out of it. On the other side of the planet, Chinese continue to prepare for an invasion of Taiwan. It is coming. And of course, once the Chinese do, the U.S. and China will instantly be at war. Chasing Dreams is an 8-part documentary aired by the state broadcasting CCTV early this week in China to mark the People's Liberation Army's 96th anniversary. It features military drills and testimonials by dozens of soldiers, of which several expressed their willingness to die in a potential attack against Taiwan. This 8-part documentary would not be on state television if the central government didn't want it there. In it, some members of the Chinese military expressed their intention to literally lay down their lives if that's what it would take, and that's what's necessary to take Taiwan. So do you think that most U.S. soldiers have that same level of devotion in this day and age? I doubt it. Ultimately, the U.S. military can find itself fighting both Russia and China at the same time. And that is why an incident that just occurred off the coast of Alaska is so chilling. 11 military vessels, from China and Russia, found operating near the Aleutian Islands last week were met by 4 U.S. Navy destroyers, Alaska's 2 U.S. senators said. Let me remind you, the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, the United States is only 50 miles away from Russia at that point, and so it's very, very vulnerable. The Biden administration has been endlessly provoking both the Russians and the Chinese, and this has just driven them into each other's arms. And North Korea just threatened to annihilate the United States in this century. Quote, should the United States choose to offend our republic, we will annihilate them by using all our military power that we've gathered so far. Let me remind you that they are nuclear capable. The North Korean diplomat said in a statement Thursday, the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. We're certainly living during a time of wars and rumors of wars, as Jesus told us. 2024 is going to be such an important turning point for the globe. If the American people truly understand the horrors that the coming wars will cause, there will be millions of people protesting in the streets right now. But again, we're not being alerted to it at all because of our sanitized and polarized media. Americans just don't understand. Most of us just assume that our leaders know exactly what they're doing and have everything under control. Unfortunately, you should know the exact opposite is actually true. We're steamrolling towards global conflict, and most global leaders do not even seem interested in talking about peace at this stage. So the unthinkable is rapidly approaching, and most people will be absolutely blindsided by the nightmarish events that are about to unfold on our planet. I hope that what I'm telling you does not come true, but unfortunately nobody is sounding an alarm. We are the third most powerful navy in the world right now. The first one is China, and the second one is Russia. That's the first time ever. So we've let down our defenses. We're now more woke in our military than ever before, and basically we're not prepared. Maybe this is the reason why America is not mentioned in Revelation. Maybe we are going to be controlled by another country. I pray that we'd have a great revival, but the way it looks, it doesn't look very good for America. And again, I don't want to be a harbinger of bad news. I believe that the rapture is very, very soon, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it because I want to be able to be taken out of this place before it all goes wild, because we know in Revelation it says it will. Let me go a little bit more and give you a little bit more of New World Order. This one is, Pandora's box is already open. Deep fake lies could social engineer the world. You really need to listen to this one because we all could be affected by this. And it's pretty amazing when you think about it, and pretty frightening too. Listen to it. As the line between fact and fiction gets harder to distinguish, online criminals need just 2 hours to create a realistic computer-generated deepfake product that can ruin someone's life. The surge in popularity of hyper-realistic photos, audio, and videos developed with artificial intelligence, AI, commonly known as deepfakes, have become an international and internet sensation. It's also giving cyber villains an edge in the crime world. Between 2022 and the first quarter of this year, deepfake use in fraud catapulted 1,200% in the United States alone. Though it's not just an American problem. Deepfakes, and you're probably wondering what it is, I'll explain it. Deepfakes used for scam purposes exploded in Canada, Germany, and also in the United Kingdom. PIDCO, a cybercrime disruption organization, has run counter-hacking education for branches of the US and Australian militaries, as well as NATO because of this. Legal systems in the Western world are hopelessly overwhelmed by online fraud cases, many of which include deepfake attacks. The market for deepfake detection was valued at $3.86 billion in 2020. It's expected to grow 42% annually through 2026. Imagine getting a phone call. Here's the way it works. Imagine getting a phone call from a loved one tearfully claiming they've been kidnapped. Naturally, the abductors want money, and the voice of your family member proceeds to give instructions on how to deliver the ransom. I've already known people who have had that. A grandson will call up, or somebody supposed to be a grandson, say, Grandma or Grandpa, this is so-and-so, and I'm stuck here and there. I need this amount of money. Now, you may be convinced it's the voice of your beloved on the other end, but there's a chance it's not. It could have been cloned. It could have been taken off of some of their social medias. Deepfake audio or voice cloning scams have spread like wildfire across the United States this year, blindsiding compassionate, unprepared individuals in multiple states. But it doesn't stop there. Deepfake attacks can arrive in many forms. These clever scams can also pop up as video chats with someone you know. That's right, your grandson picture with different words coming out of his mouth can happen to you or anyone. They can appear as the social media post of a longtime colleague discussing how cryptocurrency investment allowed them to purchase this beautiful new home, and they're excited pointing at it in a photo. Every single one of those examples is already happening. But to create these realistic fakes, criminals need access to material like photos, audio, and video. Unfortunately, these things are very easy to get. If someone gets into your private photos in your iCloud, that gives all the sampling, all the technology to make hyper-realistic fakes, your face, your voice, pleading for something or someone you know. Social media profiles are a treasure trove for criminals looking to create these products. Litigation against cybercrimes is an uphill battle. It's long and it's arduous. It's drawn out, and it's emotionally and financially taxing. Other AI industry insiders say it's not just the quality of fakes that are a problem, but also the quantity. Sooner or later, people will be able to generate any combination of pixels of any type of content. And it's up to you to filter them out. Discerning what's real and fake online is already challenging. 86% of internet users admit to being hoodwinked by fake news, according to a Ipsos survey more than 25,000 participants in 25 countries. Nearly half of all internet traffic is now generated by bots. Vigilance and having a plan are needed to repel or counter deepfake attacks. The rapid advancement of technology in fraud evokes nostalgia for the days when internet scams were just an email from a self-proclaimed prince in a foreign land who needed help transferring money. Remember those times? Also, AI has given cyber criminals better tools. For individuals, disrupting or preventing a deepfake scam is simple. In the event of a suspected voice clone attack, the first thing you should say is, honey, I'm going to have to call you right back. Also, you never give an individual email addresses with full names or numbers relevant to the user's data or his birth. Further, a person should never reuse a login password. First thing hackers do when they snag a password is try logging into every possible site to see where else it works. This includes bank accounts, cloud storage, social media, and more. Tracking scammers may be well established, but a clear path for victims to recover lost money is not. Financial scams from deepfakes can range from $243,000 to $35 million, according to one analysis. One example was a cryptocurrency hustle using a forged likeness of Elon Musk that reportedly cost U.S. consumers $2 million over 6 months. Perhaps more troubling is that anyone can create them. All someone needs to create a deepfake on their smartphone is a graphics card and to watch a few web tutorials. Then you're good to go. Timing of the upcoming U.S. presidential election of 2024 is precarious, given the surge of deepfake material. Americans should expect an election race chock full of swindlers wielding an arsenal of deepfakes. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security also expressed concern over the technologies used, stating, quote, "The threat of deepfakes and synthetic media comes not from the technology used to create it, but from people's natural inclination to believe what they see. Yet Pandora's box is already open." Earlier this year, videos emerged of U.S. politicians making strikingly out-of-character remarks. For example, one involved Hillary Clinton endorsing Republican presidential candidate hopeful Ron DeSantis. It's her face, her voice, her words, only it was not her. Another depicted President Joe Biden hurling angry remarks at a transgender person. My suggestion, in short these days, believe nothing and verify everything. Let me go a little bit further and tell you about Israel. The dilemma of a preventive Israeli strike on Hezbollah. Hezbollah's provocations on the Lebanese-Israeli border continue. While deeper within Lebanon, the Iranian-backed terror army continues to amass a monstrous arsenal of some 200,000 rockets, mortar shells, missiles, and drones. Hundreds of these threats are capable of targeting strategic sites within Israel, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. The situation raises the question of whether Israel needs to consider a preventive strike. And right now, Israel, I'll short-circuit this article, Israel is definitely thinking of striking the Lebanese border where they are amassed. Right now, Lebanon is pushing. Since the 2006 and Second Lebanese War, Israel's policy regarding Hezbollah has been one of containment. For its part, Hezbollah has also sought to avoid outright confrontation, though for different reasons. This has not stopped Israel from engaging in a campaign to eliminate precision weapons and other game-changing threats in next-door Syria. However, the challenge is coming from Lebanon. It's Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah is right now trying to invade the so-called land that's between Lebanon and Israel, the Golan Heights. The internal situation in Lebanon is also pushing Nasrallah to take steps to portray himself as the defender of Lebanon and to justify possessing an armed force in the face of domestic critics. We're clearly in a stage of heightened tensions. All opportunities for miscalculations are large, but Hezbollah believes that limited friction with Israel will strengthen it internally in Lebanon. Hezbollah has to understand that Israel reserves all options on the table, and it looks like Israel probably will have a preemptive strike. It may come very quickly. It will only last a couple days, but they are not going to continue to let that buildup happen on their border. Let me go a little bit further and tell you about some economy news. We are being told by everyone, by the Biden administration and most of the media outlets that our economy is great, it's recovering. That is a bold-faced lie. Of course, that's exactly what Biden's and his administration is known for. This one comes out today. 7 trends that indicate economic disaster is approaching very rapidly. There are certain things people look for, and if you see them, and these will make a lot of sense to you when you hear them, you can tell that our economy is in trouble, that economic disaster is looming. Throughout the United States history, there have always been signs that a major turndown was coming. And that's precisely what we're witnessing right now. This is what we need to know. Listen, tax revenues are way down. Demand for trucking services are way down. Let me go on and tell you the 7 trends. Number 1, when economic activity slows down, less tax revenue comes in. Right now, the federal government and state government tax revenues are declining precipitously. They're the lowest in 20 years, ratio-wise. Number 2, when the economy slows down, trucking companies see less demand for their services. Spending by shippers dropped 11% compared to the second quarter of 2022. Number 3, employment is supposed to be the bright spot for the economy, but the latest employment record and report shows that the United States actually lost 585,000 full-time jobs last month. Number 4, U.S. employers have already announced more job cuts this year than they did in all of 2022. Hits just keep coming. CVS is cutting approximately 5,000 jobs within the next 2 weeks. Number 5, monthly cost for potential home buyers has surged by 20% compared to a year ago, thanks to the Feds raising the interest rate. Number 6, the fact that delinquency rates for commercial real estate mortgages are skyrocketing is yet another sign that we're in the early stages of the worst commercial real estate crisis in all of U.S. history. Number 7, the share of U.S. population that cannot even afford a $400 emergency expense just continues to go up. But Joe Biden and his defenders continue to insist that everything is just fine. In fact, Joy Behar is quite certain that the economy is booming right now. Leftist Joe Behar reportedly earns $7 million annually. As co-host on The View, said on Friday's program that, quote, the economy is booming, and people, quote, are having an easier time putting bread on the table, in a passionate defense of Joe Biden. She's as big a liar as he is. Meanwhile, our banks continue to experience really weird technical glitches. For example, in recent days, many Wells Fargo customers have been greatly upset about money disappearing from their accounts. The company responded in a statement to CNN that a limited amount of their customers are experiencing the disappearing deposits. They said most of them were resolved and that they would fix the problem soon. Most Americans are simply trusting that our leaders have everything under control, so they'll be bitterly, bitterly disappointed when they finally realize the truth. Again, another one with the economy, a big sign of the economy slowing down is this: boxes. You may think, boxes? Cardboard box sales are plunging. It suggests a recession is coming. Listen to the logic here. Organizations have been really slow lately. Less money has been coming in than usual. That's why tax revenues are gone. It's caused a lot of confusion because when people turn on their televisions, they're told that the U.S. economy is doing just fine. Of course, that's not actually true. But these media reports are still causing a tremendous amount of confusion. A lot of people out there are just frustrated because things are so slow for their businesses or organizations right now, while the overall economy is supposedly buzzing along at a really good pace. So what's really going on? Well, when the money supply contracts, there is going to be less economic activity. And if money supply continues to shrink, a recession will be inevitable. That's what's happening. Whether we know that or not, that's what's happening. Whether we told that or not, that's what's happening. Your government is lying to you. Your media is lying to you. A recession is on the way. As sure as I'm sitting here, a recession is on the way. How do I know? Not just the 7 indicators I just read to you, but this one big one that's always there when a recession comes. The index of leading economic indicators has already fallen for 15 months in a row. An index designed to track turns in U.S. business cycles fell for the 15th straight month in June. The last time we saw a streak like this, we experienced the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And here's another off the beaten path metric that is screaming recession: a big plunge in the sale of cardboard boxes. What? How could that mean recession? Well, Packaging Corps of America earlier this month reported that cardboard box sales fell 18% in the second quarter. That's one of the biggest slumps on record. Now you might wonder, what do cardboard box sales have to do with the economy? Well, just stop and think about it. Stuff gets shipped in boxes. Everything from raw material to final products arrive at your door in packaged boxes. A lot of you shop Amazon. Amazon sends everything in a box. If there's less stuff produced and sold, an economy will need fewer boxes. So cardboard box sales serve as a great indicator of real economic activity: production, buying, and selling. That's right. These numbers are absolutely screaming that a recession is dead ahead. And it isn't just the U.S. economy that is struggling. Manufacturing activity all over the planet. China, Turkey, Italy, France, Germany, Eurozone, UK, Canada, and Brazil are all contracting. They're all shrinking. They're all having shortages they're having short sales of boxes. Everyone, wow, it's not good news at all. Goods production in the Eurozone fell at the sharpest pace since the global financial crisis in July, contributing to the fastest drop in factory gate prices since September of 2009. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that big economic trouble is coming. I've been telling you this, and I'm going to continue to tell it to you. I may be the only one telling you this, but I'm going to. I hope you've been getting ready for such a scenario. Once upon a time, the U.S. economy was the greatest economic machine that the world has ever seen. But now, our foundations are cracking, and the weeds are growing all over the place. And it's definitely disheartening to watch what's happening, because what's ahead is going to be far worse than we're experiencing right now. After the Great Recession, our leaders should have attempted to fix the fundamental problems that we were facing. Instead, they just patched their economic and financial systems together and created an even larger bubble. Now that bubble is bursting, and that's going to cause an extraordinary amount of pain for most Americans. I wish I had better news to tell you on the economy, but as long as this president is in office, I will not have better news, because this president doesn't have one single inkling of what to do with the economy. He has no domestic policy, and he has no foreign policy. He's putting us at vulnerable spots in the world for war. He's put us in a vulnerable spot for our economic collapse. And it's all because of Joe Biden and his administration. This man does not understand anything about economics or about global recession or about anything that has to do in the world. He's the worst president this country has ever seen, and we're watching the negative effects of his administration. Let me give you a little bit more as we go on. In war, Biden and Xi Jinping. Team Biden outmaneuvered by China. U.S. policy towards China appears to be suffering from a belief in magic. That, for instance, withdrawing from Afghanistan would be a great idea. That Putin would be happy with a minor incursion into Ukraine. That the Chinese spy balloon was silly. I'm quoting. The mission of education in the military should be to ensure equity, leading one veteran to say that the U.S. is trying to out-pronoun our enemies. And then America's southern border, with agents trying to process reportedly 8,000 illegal immigrants every day. And this week, there were cartels that were dressed in armor with guns coming across the border, thereby leaving vast swaths of land open to traffickers, smugglers, and terrorists, and they say it's secure. Regrettably, the Biden administration seems to be letting itself be outmaneuvered, encountering the imminent threat of war posed by China's leader Xi Jinping and his ruling Communist Party. John Kerry, Biden's climate envoy, landing in China in mid-July, declared that the country was doing an incredible job. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visited to China in June. For the first trip to China by a top U.S. diplomat since 2018, no senior Chinese official went to the airport to greet him, no red carpet, no ceremony. That was a clear indication that China is against the United States. Even diplomats from every country will be welcomed. They weren't welcomed. Blinken swallowed the airport insult and met anyway with, among others, his Chinese counterpart and Xi Jinping himself. They held what the State Department called a productive conversation, a real exchange. That's hogwash. He said, so absolutely we should think, good, we have nothing to worry about. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen apparently thought so too. When she arrived on her pilgrimage ahead of Kerry in July, she actually bowed repeatedly in the Chinese fashion of an inferior kowtowing to a superior 3 times before Chinese Vice Premier He Lething. I'm telling you, America is taking a back seat to China. The Chinese Communist Party hacked the emails of senior U.S. officials, including Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, before her planned trip to China. Beijing decided early in July to restrict exports of germanium and gallium, key elements in semiconductors and missile systems. Did we ask them about it? No. China retaliated against U.S. trade restrictions, citing national security. Did any of our leaders, when they were visiting China, bring these things up? No. At home, Xi Jinping has continued to tighten party control over the economy, even as the economic growth has faltered and unemployment in China has climbed. In 2020, China possessed 100 ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missile, and their launchers. Last year, the tally reached 450. This year, Fujian province opposite Taiwan opened 18 new air raid shelters, a major military hospital, and conducted a large-scale blood drive. Why? It's in anticipation of them invading Taiwan. Holding U.S. dollars, China should be, but Beijing is dumping them, and they're building up their gold reserves. They're buying gold from all over the world. We ought to know what's going on there. The day Yellen landed in China, Xi Jinping told the Eastern Military Command to prepare for war that exact same day. The United States and its allies can prevail against China in a conflict over Taiwan and its democratically governed 24 million, but only if everything needed for defense is on the island in one day, one of our senior officials said. Only after American leaders drop their belief in magic and speak realistically to the public. We are not preparing for what's happening in China or Russia. Again, I hope I'm not the harbinger of bad news, but this is what's going on. We can't hide our heads in the sand. We are in bad shape, and we need a change in that White House, and we need it really, really soon. Let's go a little bit further and tell you about religion. Gay Church Finder reveals America's confusion about what defines a church. More than 6,000 United Methodist churches have left the denomination as of July 6th due to the UMC's stance on ordaining gay-identifying clergy. As the biblical role of LGBT identifying people in the church continues to fracture Protestant denominations, a website called gaychurch.org promotes churches solely on the basis of LGBT inclusion. Gaychurch.org provides a directory to help LGBT-identifying Americans locate gay-affirming churches near them. Gospel Coalition, or 9 Marks, seeks to connect Christians with gospel-believing churches. This one identifies churches that do not view homosexuality in and itself as a sin. The website, run by a small volunteer organization called God's Agape Love, put into practice, holds that, quote, affirming congregations will ordain LGBT-identifying people to ministry and perform same-sex marriages. The Affirming Church Directory raises an important theological question. What makes a church a church? What does make a church a church? The marks by which a true church is known are these. If the pure doctrine of the gospel is preached, if it maintains the pure administration of the sacraments as instituted by Christ, if the church discipline is exercised in punishing sin. A true church is managed according to the pure word of God, while all things contrary are rejected, and Jesus Christ acknowledged as the only head of the church. A false church ascribes more power and authority to itself and to its ordinances than to the word of God, and will not submit itself to the yoke of Christ. True churches reject ideas contrary to the Bible, such as same-sex marriage. You hear me right? While false churches take the power to determine right and wrong in their own hands, regardless of what the Bible claims and proclaims and ordains. They become a Bible unto themselves. Rosary Butterfield, a Christian author who formerly identified as a lesbian but gave it up, condemns churches who allow unbiblical ideas from the world to enter the church. She writes that Christ lovingly forgives all sin by granting the gift of repentance and sanctification for those who believe. A genuine Christian will not make peace with sin. For doing so scorns the atoning blood of Christ, Butterfield wrote. The Affirming Church Directory is not pointing to a different kind of church, but something that's not a Christian church at all. In my opinion, it's an oxymoron to be an LGBT Christian church. Let's continue to go on. Planet Earth. 10 signs that we're really living in apocalyptic times. Time is running out for humanity. Our world becomes a little more like a really bad science fiction movie with each passing day. And our self-destructive tendencies are slowly but surely transforming our society into living nightmares. How much can we stand? How much can we stand by and watch this happen? How much can we say, man, this is really happening? On a very basic level, most people can feel that global events are starting to spiral out of control, whether you're a Christian or whether you're not. Evil is growing all around us. And just about everything that our leaders do to solve our rapidly growing problems seems to make them even worse. The pace of change just keeps getting faster and faster, and many fear this will soon lead to the widespread chaos all over the globe. Let me give you 10 signs that we are really living in the last days. Number 1, leaders all over the world seem to be catching war fever, as I told you. And the Biden administration just made a military conflict with China even more likely by announcing a $345 million weapons package for Taiwan. Number 2, both sides continue to escalate the war in Ukraine. And now the Russians are openly warning that they will potentially use nuclear weapons. Number 3, according to the United Nations, 2.4 billion people already do not have enough food to eat. And now that the Black Sea's grain deal is broken down and India has placed severe restrictions on rice exports, we're being warned that global food prices could soon go much higher. Number 4, pestilences are raging all over the globe, and many old diseases are now making stunning comebacks. For example, Florida has now become the epicenter for an outbreak of leprosy in the United States. Number 5, global weather patterns have gone completely crazy. Phoenix just had a streak where the high temperature reached at least 110 degrees for 31 days in a row. Number 6, men are getting pregnant and giving birth to babies. A 22-year-old transgender man has given birth to twins after going through 6 rounds of artificial insemination in a bid to get pregnant. Man, if you don't think our world is wacky, I don't know how much more I could tell you. 7, technology continues to increase at a pace that's absolutely breathtaking. In fact, it's being reported that scientists have developed a breakthrough treatment which appears to annihilate all solid tumors. 8, scientists are bringing ancient species back to life. One team of researchers was recently able to reanimate worms that have been frozen for 2,000 years. 10, our soil and water are already heavily saturated with microplastics. And now we're being told that this crisis is getting exponentially worse. Given enough time, microplastics would completely collapse our civilization, even if none of the other very serious problems that we're currently dealing with existed. Of course, the same thing could be said about nuclear war, global famine, AI, and a number of cataclysmic threats that we're now facing. We really are living in apocalyptic times, and the months and years ahead of us promise to be very, very interesting indeed. I'm believing in Revelation more and more. I've always believed in it, but I've never seen anything quite as shocking as what we're watching right now. I believe it's a warm-up to the last days. I believe we're going to see the last days very, very soon. So with all that dire news, let me give you some good news, and then I'm going to give you some weird news. Let me give you the good news first. The good news is this: Arizona Christian University. In light of the darkness of education in our world, a Christian school is continuing to grow. A major conservative Christian university is preparing to celebrate its 8th consecutive year of growth. Located in Glendale, Arizona, Christian University, ACU, is smashing its own enrollment records for the 8th time in a row, skyrocketing from about 400 students in 2010 to 1,300 this fall. That steady growth has taken place under the leadership of Len Munsell, a constitutional lawyer who has served as ACU's president since 2010. Munsell credits the university's success, listen, to its devoutly Christian principles, telling the Washington Stand, quote, "The mission of the university is to transform our culture with truth. And really our mission is to educate and equip followers of Christ to be leaders of influence and excellence." In order to achieve these goals, ACU introduced new academic programs, including film studies, communications, journalism, and popular political science and pre-law programs, which have already yielded a Harvard Law School graduate who headed the school's chapter of the Federalist Society, as well as students clerking for federal appeals court judges. At ACU, students are expected to attend chapel a certain number of times per semester. Chapel at ACU features student-led worship, spiritual formation-led pastors, missionaries, faculty members, and Christian leaders. ACU also requires service projects and evangelization by its students, preaching the gospel by both word and deed. This strong focus on living the spiritual life is supported academically by a core curriculum designed to deepen students' knowledge of Western civilization's Christian foundations. Every student at ACU, whether they're studying business or pre-med or pre-law, get 18 hours of biblical studies, and then they get a core curriculum, humanities-based, the great ideas of Western civilization. The dual focus on Scripture alongside the classics is what makes ACU core curriculum unique. Biblically integrated study of the classics. The program is based on the classical education model, which, by the way, I know very much about because I studied all through school. The parochial school had the classical education model. It's designed to equip students to seek, recognize, and to pursue truth. Such staunch Christian principles have, of course, not made the ACU or its graduates popular with leftist-dominated institutions. Earlier this year, the Washington Elementary School District in Arizona terminated its long-standing partnership with ACU, banning ACU education students from working in the school district's classrooms. ACU fought back, filing a lawsuit arguing the school board terminated its partnerships with ACU strictly because of their religious status and beliefs, namely their beliefs of biblical marriage and sexuality, despite having zero evidence of any incident by an Arizona Christian student that violates any school district policy. The school district settled with ACU in May, with board members voting 4-1 to continue and even extend the partnership with ACU and agreeing to pay ACU's legal fees. With such academic, spiritual, and cultural successes under its belt, it's perhaps little wonder that ACU is continuing to grow. Munsell noted that while college enrollment nationally has decreased and declined 12% nationally, enrollment at ACU is up almost 200% in the same time frame. We're seeing general enrollment growth as people become more and more aware of the excellence of what we're doing and really the spiritual commitment of it. Munsell expressed that he hopes and plans to increase enrollment to 5,000 students within the coming year. Celebrating ACU's 8th consecutive year of record enrollment means the school is well on its way to achieving that goal. That is the good news. Let me give you weird news. This comes from Pennsylvania and a city very close to where I was born. Enormous Lebanon bologna sandwich unveiled at Pennsylvania Community Fair. Let me show you the picture. There it is. An enormous Lebanon bologna sandwich billed as one of the world's largest has been unveiled at a central Pennsylvania fair. The Lebanon Fair is big. 150-foot long sandwich was created Tuesday night at the Lebanon Area Fair by a large crew of volunteers known as the Bologna Security. Lebanon bologna is known for its distinct smoky and tangy flavor. But here's the good part. Every foot-long bite was sponsored at $100 per foot. The money was donated to Lebanon County Christian Ministries and their efforts to help people dealing with food insecurity in the Lebanon Valley. A weird one, but also a very good one. Well, that's in the news for tonight.